Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Female FriYay, where you can't be what you can't see. Today, we're staying a little bit closer to home, actually, and we have the fabulous Dr. Naomi Freeman with us this morning. How are you doing, Naomi?
I'm really good, thanks, Becky. Thanks so much for having me on. This is amazing.
I think, yeah, as I say, I feel a bit sorry for you because I think you were volunteered by some of the Block Boys, weren't you? And
A little bit.
Fleming, I think they've got a lot to answer for.
Oh, they'll be punished, don't worry.
Okay, this is good. So we're going to start with a relatively easy question. What's your name? Where do you work? And where do you come from?
So, my name's Naomi Freeman, and I work at the Royal Infirmary of Edinburgh. So, I've just recently become a consultant out there, which is awesome. And I suppose I'm from Suffolk, I guess. So, Suffolk by way of training in Nottingham and Derby and Leicester and all around the East Midlands. And then I came up to Scotland at sort of ST6. I've been up there for a couple of years now. It's great.
Awesome. I bet it's cold.
Weirdly not. It's 17 degrees today. It's
Wow,
proper
it's
balmy.
warmer than
I
Cornwall
know.
then. It's cold here
It,
today. Anyway, what attracted you to regional anaesthesia? Let's get on to the juicy
the
stuff.
meat. Oh, I just think it's brilliant. I mean, I found I'm very, very, very fortunate that I got to train in Nottingham. So I got to train with people like Nigel Bedforth and James French and Paul Townsley and people who really they they have regional anaesthesia as kind of the bread and butter. That's the first line, right? So the amount of blocks that I was encouraged to do, to train on, to make it part of my normal anesthetic practice was incredibly supportive. And I love the mechanics of it. I love finding the anatomy. I love finding the nerves. It sounds so geeky, but just finding that little hypoechoic bit, you're like, oh, that's it. And you find your needle and the needle goes in plane and you can see it the whole time on the ultrasound. And it fills me with this kind of little, I don't know, it's my happy place.
Brings
It
you
really makes me
joy.
happy. It does. And seeing the local anaesthetic spread makes me happy. I can't explain it very well, but it is genuinely one of my favorite things to do.
Sadly, as a fellow geek, I kind of get what you're saying, which
I
I don't know
thought I
whether it's a
hoped you would.
reflection on us. So regional anaesthesia aside, if you weren't an anaesthetist, what do you think you might be doing with your life?
I was so well, I was in two minds. I finished my A-levels and I was in two minds as to whether to go to drama school or whether to go to medical school. And I went to my drama teacher at the time and I said, right, what do you think? Can I do this? And she went, huh, well, you probably get into drama school, but you wouldn't have a career. And I was like, so genuinely, that was probably one of the best bits of advice I've ever had because it made me go, okay, brilliant, honest. Don't just encourage me for the sake of it. And I didn't end up going to medical school. I went to graduate entry medical school in the end, but that took me down the science route. And actually, I haven't really looked back. I love my Amdram, don't get me wrong, and I love performing, but I think I'm quite glad I'm not an actress or an actor. Do you know, I do have a plan in my head for Anaesthesia the musical. It's all in there. One
Yes,
day I will launch it on the
it will be
unsuspecting public.
phenomenal. What's the
Oh.
favourite part of your job?
I think the favorite part of my job now I like all of it. There's something really nice about being a consultant, actually, that is just really chilled, which I know isn't every job everywhere. But as opposed to being a trainee where it's all go, 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 and you get a chance to reflect, which is lovely. And I take real pleasure in the simple things. Like actually, genuinely, yesterday I had a lovely day where I had some really quite complex cases for the surgeon, not for me. Um, and I managed to see them afterwards and talk to them and see how it went and measure your interventions, I think is really quite fun and very rewarding. You get to see that what you are doing has an impact on that patient's life, which is incredibly important. And I think one of the most valuable things that we do as anaesthetists is actually taking that person who is incredibly vulnerable and making them feel at ease. And it's that
Yes.
patient contact that I really enjoy. Which always surprises people. They say, "Oh, well, you do patient contact. You're an anaesthetist. You go to sleep." And I was like, "Well, actually, that's the most important thing that we do, is that interaction. And we have a very short space of time to make a rapport, and it can be very challenging to do that, but incredibly rewarding when you think, actually, no, I made a difference to that person today, whether it be their pain management or just their general patient journey. It's hugely impactful.
And I think it's also the realm of the regional anaesthetist, isn't it?
Mm,
Because we do a lot of
definitely.
awake work.
I think even in general, that's a skill, isn't it? That tiny bit of time to make somebody trust you enough to potentially risk their life.
Yeah.
That's huge, right? That is massive. Obviously, it's day to day for us, but for them it isn't. And I think it's a real skill that takes a lot of time to probably really get right, is to make that
Yes.
patient feel that they can trust you.
And I think some people are better at it than others.
Mm.
Right, moving on. Now, I'm guessing as an avid regional anaesthetist, you have a favourite block. But if you don't have a favourite block, you're allowed to tell me your favourite dinosaur instead.
Oh, well, dinosaurs are more kind of my son's department. I stay away from dinosaurs if possible. So I'd love a good interscaling. I do.
Oh, okay.
Love a good interscaling. I love the beautiful traffic lights. I like finding that, watching C7 run away. And I just really, I find it a very comfortable block for me. And that's probably because of all the sort of shoulder surgery we did in Nottingham, putting in catheters and stuff, and it became quite a comfortable place. So maybe that's why I like it. But I like all of them, to be honest. I like a good finding the forearm nerves. That's always fun. Just isolating those, that's quite fun. But yeah, genuinely, it's yeah, probably I go into scaling, I think.
So, what's your son's favourite dinosaur?
Oh my goodness. I've no idea.
He's going
Did
through
you know
that
that? I don't know.
phase of just having lots of dinosaurs in his life.
Well, he's nearly 7, and I think he just, yeah, probably T-Rex, I should think.
T-Rex is always a good
Classic.
choice. Right, we're going to do something completely different now, and we're going to
Okay.
have our 1 minute block break where I'm going to ask you questions completely irrelevant to regional anaesthesia to see if we can get to know you a bit more. So I have my timer.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready. Go for it.
Right, let's go. Name something that you're really bad at, Naomi.
Getting up in the morning.
What animal do you think best represents you?
Kangaroo, quite bouncy.
Okay, if you could travel anywhere in the world, cost, time, logistics aside, where would you go?
Probably go to that place in is it Seychelles where they have those houses on stilts,
Oh yeah,
and it's just you and a
absolutely.
house and the sea for a
No
week.
no
That'd be
one
lovely.
else. That
Nobody
sounds
else.
like a great
On
choice.
my own.
Are you a couch potato or a gym bunny?
Kind of in the middle. My nature is sorry, my nature is couch potato, but my aspiration is gym bunny.
Love it. Beach hut or cabin in the woods?
Cabin in the woods.
Would you rather watch TV or read a book?
Read a book.
And what's the most used emoji on your phone?
The laughing one with the tears coming out.
Okay. What's the first thing you do in the morning?
Have a shower.
Ah, Naomi, your
Oh,
time is up.
there
Good
we are.
job. Good
Now you know I have
job.
a shower in the morning, which is very important.
It's very important. Right, so we're going to move on to more regional questions now.
Cool.
Tell us a little bit about your career path. How did you end up at sixth form contemplating Amdram dramatics to consultant in regional anaesthesia in Edinburgh?
Wow. Okay. So I suppose generally when I was a kid, I always wanted to do medicine. I think deep down, I was always sort of a scientist and was fascinated by how stuff worked. And then I did my A levels and didn't get the grades I needed. So ended up having a year out. And then I went to university and did microbiology in Leeds, which was awesome. And then after that, it was a case of, PhD or medicine. And there at that time, way back in 2002, 2, they had the graduate entry schools were just coming out. So they came and touted their business through loads of universities. And I went to see one of their presentations, thought, this is still on the cards. I could still do medicine. So that's what I did. I applied and got into Warwick, and that was fab. Had a really good time there. There's something about not having a proper paid job till you're 27 that kind of makes you reassess life slightly, but that's fine. And then I went to do my foundation years in Nottingham, so East Midlands, Derby, Nottingham. And I stayed there till ST6. But I ended up doing ACCS because I thought my path lay in intensive care. I thought I loved it, all
Oh,
the
you were
critical
like me
illness and the
then.
pre-hospital. And yeah, did loads of
Yeah,
pre-hospital
loving
stuff at
it,
med
running
school.
around.
Yes. Yeah, dealing with people falling off horses and car crashes. I loved it. It's brilliant.
Absolutely.
So lots of event medicine when I was at med school. Loved that. And then Um, what happened then? Then I get to see my ACCS, and then I happily or not happily at the time struggled with the primary quite a lot actually, and ended up coming out of training, which at the time was devastating, but actually in hindsight was brilliant because I got to work as a year as a trust grade, had my own lists, I had some routine, some regularity to my job, which was wonderful, and learned a huge amount from that. And then came back into training, and then I managed to get pregnant with my twins, which was great, but also I managed to maybe put the final off probably a bit too long. So I gave myself one shot to pass the final, which was idiocy in retrospect, but it meant that I put a lot of pressure on myself for that final viva, for the final exam attempt, and of course didn't pass it, right? Because why would you? Because like, oh, if I don't pass this, then I've got no time with my kids, and I'll have to come out of training again, and it'll be
Oh,
the end of
that's
the
a
career. It'll
lot
be
of
awful.
pressure.
Yeah, all up here. So anyway, I managed to fail that. Then came out of training again, and then I passed it the next sitting because obviously there was no pressure, right? So I was working part time. My trust at the time were incredibly supportive. My RA and clinical directors were brilliant, and essentially supported me to get back into training again. So I did. So I came back into training
I love
again
it.
after a year of that, again with some lovely autonomous practice, and ended up. Uh, my husband got a new job, so we ended up transferring up to Scotland. So I kept needing to do a new transfer and ended up coming to Scotland at ST6. So, and then got a job in the Royal Infirmary after that. So it was all quite smooth sailing, really, after I passed the exam. But it was one of those times in your career where you just feel like there's no way out. There's everything's ending, and I can't possibly achieve what I want to achieve if I haven't got this piece of paper. It's a huge deal, and
It is. It's a
it's
lot of
made to be
pressure.
felt. Yeah, it's made me feel like a big deal. In retrospect, it's like, yeah, it was fine, but clearly at the
You
time it
need to
wasn't.
hang about with Rob more because he's always saying that you're not defined by whether you're in training or not. So,
Well,
but it
Fleming, yeah,
is.
well, we were together, obviously in together. That sounds wrong. We trained together and worked together in Nottingham quite a bit. So, yeah, and we're now obviously on the associations together as well. So it was we've had many a conversation of that ilk, believe
Yes.
me, yeah.
So, in all of that, what do you
Mm.
think your biggest career achievement has been?
I think a couple of things. One is the tenacity and belligerence to not give up. I think so. I managed to obviously get through everything and ended up CCTing, and that was great. I think apart from the exam stuff, I think that being chair of the association trainee committee has been a massive thing because I always used to look up to people doing GAT and the amazing chairs that we've had in the past and think I'd love to be on that committee. Just part of that energy would be incredible. And then I managed to get elected to that in 2020, and it's just gone from there, really. It's been fab. The people that I've met, the fantastic trainees that I've worked with, the energy that anaesthetic trainees still have is incredible. And the motivation after everything they've been through the last couple of years with COVID and recruitment and exams that are being suboptimal, shall we say, it's been amazing to see. I know we shouldn't use the word resilience anymore, but they have that kind of determination to do anaesthetics is brilliant, and I love working with them. Um, a fantastic committee at the moment, and we're doing some great work towards advocacy for trainees and trying to really push our agenda. It's brilliant. It's the energy's fab, and I love that. And I feel very privileged to hold the chair position at the moment. I think the
So,
other
what
thing.
will happen when you transition, obviously, now into consultancy?
Mm,
I'm guessing at one point your tenature, as we put it, might come,
yeah,
well, will come to an end because you're no longer in that kind of
no.
trainee advocacy
No,
position.
absolutely. And so as these are sort of terms of reference, if you like, mean that you can be a trainee, you can be on the trainee committee a 1 year post CCT because
Okay.
it's still a kind of transitionary period. So I only CCT'd in May, but I only got the consultant job in August. So it's still quite new. And I still feel in many ways very much like a trainee. And I think the fact that I've been training for like 15 years, it makes it like in terms of like the percentage of my career, obviously the bulk of that has been trainee. So Yeah, after a year, I'll step down in July, and then after our trainee conference, which will be the 6th, 7th of July. So I'll step down then, and then one of my lovely colleagues will take over at that point. But I still hope to be involved in sort of
Oh, we'll
trainee
just
life
get
and
you another
advocacy and
position on the board somewhere. This is how it works, isn't it? You just keep going up, and
I
so
don't
that
know.
all sounds amazing. You've mentioned your exam struggles. Do you
Yeah,
think that's been your biggest struggle in your career?
probably, probably. I think it's certainly been the one that comes to mind most easily. Um, yeah, I think a lot of people, certainly I do a lot of mentoring, and so a lot of the struggles that are people are still having are with low morale and surrounding the exam particularly, but also around recruitment and getting training numbers, and
It's
realize
tough.
it's really tough. And with every, the workforce morale is low anyway, right? Like we've got such problems with recruitment and retention. And I think that is interesting to me, and interesting and also a bit tragic in a way, to see that things that I was going through 10, 12 years ago are still happening now. And you think that there must be a better way for people to train in anesthesia. And I personally think we should have a much more flexible approach to it. People can
I
kind of dip in
agree
and
at
out, a
that.
bit more pick 'em. You used to go to the pick and mix, right, in Woolworths. Gonna go
Yeah.
for a bit retro here, but and you pick what you wanted, right, out of a sweet bag, and you just pay for what you got. That kind of approach to training, be able to come in and out a little bit more, to go away and do fantastic out of program stuff, and come back and have that not be penalized, and actually it be counted towards you as a doctor, you as a professional, have that as part of your meat, as opposed to it being, oh, you did this, that's interesting. However, have you got these competencies signed off?
Yes, it's
You've got to
very
have both,
rigid.
right?
It's very
Yeah,
rigid UK training, and I
yeah.
think that the things that you mentioned, the kind of out of program specialist interests, often the things that bring the trainees joy, not the obstetric night shift. And actually, stepping into those things can actually help with morale, attainment. All of those. It helps you tick the boxes.
Hmm.
However, from my own personal experience, you're right. It's, oh well, oh, that's got nothing to do with us, and there's never that necessary encouragement to go on and
Mm.
try new things. So yeah, I
I
think
think, sorry,
challenging.
it is. And I really do believe that we need to look at more individualized training. Of course, there has to be a certain set of standards. I'm not disputing that in any way. But I do wonder whether a more individualized approach, even on a deanery basis, to sort of say, well, okay, well, you can take this particular path and you've done this, that, and the other, and that's great, and that can count for this and that. And as a person, what do you need to develop? Because we all make these personal development plans, right? Which is kind of do an ALS course and do this and then tick it off. But actually, if we truly look at personal development, that isn't just tick boxes. That is also making sure that you are fed, watered, slept enough. Do you have everything in your armory to do have the career that you want? Do you need to go on another anatomy course? Do you need to perhaps review certain blocks in a certain way? I mean, the curriculum now obviously is very heavy on regional, isn't it? There's a huge amount of that that's now mandatory. So we need to look at how we're delivering regional training, I think, and to make it fit
Mm.
for purpose. Because I mean, obviously we're massive advocates of it, but in terms of everyone else who doesn't really like blocks, how do you make it attractive to them? How do we sell, if you like, this fantastic way of doing anesthetics?
We do a podcast called Female FriYay, and we show everyone how absolutely awesome female
It's
regional anaesthetists
brilliant.
are. That's what we do. And we go into the hospital and say, do you want to learn a block? And we just look like zealots. That's how I reckon it's going to work out. But then I'm not sure everyone just tells us to be off, but never mind. Um,
Perfectly allowed to do that, that's fine.
what's the best piece of advice you think you've ever been given, career or otherwise?
Oh, I think this sounds very businessy, doesn't it? But I think no is a complete sentence,
I
which,
love
okay,
it.
grammatically it isn't. But do you know what? You can say no to stuff. And that's part of the reason I think trainees a lot are encouraged to do audits for the sake of doing audits, and that's my massive bugbear as a trainee. Like, oh, I'm going to tick this box or do this audit, but actually, it meant nothing to me. It meant nothing to anybody else. It improved nothing. And saying no to some of those things and taking on projects that you actually are interested in, I think is really
And
important.
actually, projects that are worthwhile and
Yes,
actually might improve service.
yes, and
And
actual
it's,
patient lives.
yeah, and I think doing one of those with multiple trainees on board is probably much better than someone doing a stethoscope audit.
Yes, I
Is there
can't.
a stethoscope on the anaesthetic machine? That is not
Yeah,
going to change anybody's life.
I found my stethoscope the other day. It was slightly dusty, which doesn't bode well, does it?
Probably as dusty as mine. So, have you had any strong female mentors in your career? You've mentioned some of the most incredible male regional anaesthetists that
They're
the
all
UK
boys,
has to
aren't they?
offer. But have you ever come across any ladies that have really mentored or inspired you?
Absolutely, absolutely. So many. I've had some fantastic people in everywhere that I've trained actually who I've really looked up to. I don't want to name everybody because then I'll miss somebody out and then I'll feel bad. But um, not just consultants, but actually my peers as well, who have gone on to do fantastic things. One thing about all of these people who've been instrumental in your career is that they're so approachable and they're so nice and they are so supportive.
So, on the vein of these incredible women, what advice would you give as an incredible woman to women coming up behind you?
I think just go for it. I think there is a place. Anesthetics is a fantastic place for women generally. It's incredibly supportive. We have great community, not just the women, I mean, everyone as a whole, as a specialty. I've always found it very, very supportive. And I think that if that isn't the case, you know, you can stand your ground and that's okay. And there are ways of being assertive without being belligerent as a woman that you can do, and you can say no and you can ask for what you want. And I think that's the main bit of advice I'd say is if you want to do something, do it. There are ways to get back into training. There are ways to do anesthetics that aren't in training that are completely valid and should be supported. And if you want to do a certain career path, just do it. If no one's done it before you, it doesn't matter. Forge your own path. I think that once you sort of get in later on in life, you realize that there's many ways of skinning a cat, right?
Absolutely.
Not literally, please don't skin cats.
And
But
no, I think the RSPCA would have you on that one. So finally, Naomi, to round up, I want you to tell us something about you that we won't know.
well, you won't know.
I thought the Amdram thing was pretty cool.
I'm a trained singer. Does that count?
Oh my word.
Got my grade 8 and that. There we go. There's
Yeah,
a thing.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Naomi Freeman, you have been absolutely wonderful today. Thank you for coming.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's lovely to meet you virtually in person at last. And yeah, thank you so much for having me.